Welcome, it's your girl Diane with dDTalks. It's another Relationship Tuesday. We're talking about invite your friends, tag everybody, let them know the topic's about. Hello everybody, this is your girl Diane with dDTalks. Our topic today is, when is the right time to talk about sex? When is the right time? Can somebody let me know? So in the meantime, invite your friends, invite your folks. This conversation should be an interesting one. It should be an interesting one. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. But before that, let me know where you're tuning in from, okay? The number is right there on the screen. For you to call in. If you would like to call into the show, the number is right there. It's 301-219-9292. Okay, 9292. When is the right time for us, for you, to talk about sex in life? You know, so there are different angles that I want to take this conversation. But in the meantime, I want to know where you're dialing in from, where you're joining me from today. Share, tag, and invite. Let your folks know that we are live. It's Relationship Tuesday with Diane. All right. I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. You're joining me from today. Let me know. Or say hello. At the very least, say hello. Say hello. Say hello. Say something. Say something. We're going to be talking about when is the right time. So before I came live, I had a few conversations. I had conversations with a few people, and they gave me some interesting feedback about what they thought it was. You know, but before I go to, you know, the relationship part of it, let's talk about, you know, the parenting side of it first, and then we'll get to the grown folk side of it. I know you all grown folks like grown folk conversation, right? But as a parent, when do you think is the right time to talk about sex with your kids? And then we're going to move from that into the grown folk talk, because it's relationship today, it's late at night. I'm sure the kids are already in bed anyway, and if they're in bed, then it's the right time to talk about that. Okay, so let me hear what you got to say. So if you are a parent, when is the right time to talk about sex? You know, that's part one. And part two is going to be in your relationship, on the romantic side. When is the right time to talk about this? So while I'm waiting for people to dial in, to tune in, to chime in, to come on board, let's squash the one with the kids. Okay, so when is the right time? So you have kids, your kids are growing up, you know, maybe you have one child or multiple children. When do you think is the right time to begin these conversations in today's age, where a lot of kids are being, you know, the rate of sexual abuse, domestic abuse is happening, you know, and even rape dates are going on among teenagers. I think you want to make sure that you have those conversations with your children early enough, so that they can be aware of what is going on. So when do you think? I'm trying to get your feedback. Hey guys, if you're just joining me, it's your girl Diane with dDTalks. Today's conversation is, when is the right time to talk about sex? And I have part A and part B. Part A is just, as an adult to a minor, when do you think is the right time to talk to that child, to introduce the child to the conversation? I know a lot of folks, a lot of parents want to maintain the innocence of their children for as long as you can. But my theory is, if your child has become curious, you know, they are snooping around, they're looking, you know, they're becoming more inquisitive about life, they are reading a lot of books that, you know, have you know, content that is adult content, then you know that they need to be aware of what's going on around them. Because right now, even in cartoons really talk about sex, they talk about relationships. So you have to even know what the kids are watching. So how early is too early anyway, or how late are you in the game to have these conversations? I think the earlier you grab them, the better. But there's such a thing as early. I think when they're too young, you want to at least educate them on privacy of their body parts. I mean, of they shouldn't be exposed, they shouldn't be playing with opposite sex. I mean, you want to let them still be innocent, but you just need to let them know that they're different. You know, one person is a boy, one person is a girl, and you have different body parts that you all should not be playing with, right? I mean, there's a discovery phase. I think little boys discover their members, you know, by the time they're 2, they're like, ooh, something cool here that they play with. But you know, and the little girls could be curious about it. Like, you have a brother, you're like, okay, what's going on here? Why don't I have this body part, and why does my brother have this body part? So they could start playing with each other's body part, and they could be deriving pleasure from that. Heck, you never know what's going on, man. They could start enjoying the whole play dates thing, and then they like, you want to figure out what your other friend has, and before you know it, the kids are being involved in complicated things. So I think the earlier you start letting them understand that they're different, the better you are. And then as they grow older, you want to start introducing them to the conversation. Whether you choose to avoid the conversation, they're going to find out one way or the other. It's just one of those things. I mean, either you're going to start developing some feelings in your body, you don't understand what's going on with you, some changes, or you know, you start being drawn when you start noticing your kids are shy about the other sex. They're shy to play with that little friend that they used to play with very freely. They're conscious of those changes that is going on with them. You know, it's time to have those conversations, because you know, you never know what could happen when they go behind that door, right? When they're out in the basement or they're doing something really curious. So I think you want to start introducing that conversation as early as possible. So basically, you want to gauge it as far as their maturity level, right? So you notice that a child, young girls these days are really developing really fast. I mean, if you see a young girl, a little girl, and she's already developing boobs, like her boobs are already shooting out, you need to sit her down and have the conversation. If she's going to start wearing bras, she is becoming a lady, okay? So you cannot ignore that. So the minute you start having to buy bras, sports bras, whatever kind of bra it is, it means her body is developing, is changing, and she needs to be aware that any, you know, unwarranted activity with the opposite, especially when her period comes in, that's it. She could be 10, she could be 12, but that's the sign of womanhood, you know. So once that happens, then you need to really start engaging your kids in that dialogue, in that conversation, right? And how do you even begin to have that conversation? One thing you don't want to do is scare the child from that conversation, right? So you want to make sure that when you're having that conversation with your child, stay calm. It's not a scary thing. Or if your child came to you and asked you a question that you had not brought up, you want to stay calm, stay composed, relax. Matter of fact, you tell them, okay, you know, so you want to find out about this, maybe you can say, we're going to talk about this after dinner. Or if it's already after dinner, you know, you can find a cool time, chill down with them, sit them down, and then create that relaxed environment so they understand that it is not a scary topic to talk about, that you are actually approachable and reachable. I know sometimes your head may be going to 9,000 places, but you can't avoid it, all right? So have the conversation either way. So stay calm, stay collected, and have the conversation with them. Because guess what? If you don't tell them, someone in school may tell them, their friends may tell them, or you know, or I mean, they're gonna learn it in school, but they don't teach them the way you want them to receive the information, right? Okay. And then another thing is, you also want to really listen, show an interest in what they're talking about. That way you can gauge how much they already know and how much they don't know, and then you can fill in the gap in an educated manner. And if you yourself as a parent is not properly educated, educate yourself, right? Educate yourself and get a book to figure out how to talk to your kids about sex. There are help books on that. So if you feel like it's an awkward conversation, you know, you can cover that. Encourage them to always trust you as an adult, and for them to always come back to you, right? And then use everyday lessons. So if you were watching a movie or you heard about an incident that occurred somewhere, use that as an opportunity to address the topic, to bring it up as a reminder and let them go. So always teach those things early on. Now that we've covered the parental side of it, since you're all grown folks, you all parents are on here, nobody's giving me feedback, nobody's responding, nobody's giving me tips as to, they're not agreeing, nobody's disagreeing, so I take it we are on point. I mean, I thought the parents would be like, yeah, that's a nay, or not. Anyway, we're going to move over from the kids, and now let's go to your relationship matters. If you were to meet someone, my question to you, I hope you're going to be interactive, guys. I hope you're going to be interactive, because this is meant to be interactive. Yikes. I don't want to be talking by myself. I want to get your feedback. And it's your feedback that helps me, because I usually get your feedback and then it helps me develop the conversation, right? I want your questions, I want your answers. And remember, you can call in with any comments, any remarks, or any questions for that matter. I don't declare that I'm the expert, but at least I know something, I know a little bit about something, okay? And I will be able to give you my feedback. So now let's assume that you were to meet somebody. So I'm going to give you two scenarios. You were to meet somebody, you meet them, things are going fine, they're going jolly, you're enjoying yourselves, you guys have a good date, and then bam, you come home, then, you know, not home, but, you know, maybe after the first kiss or something, and then one person wants to go past the kiss, and the other person is uncomfortable. When is the right time to say, you know what, I should talk about it? Or do you think people should talk about it anyway? You meet somebody, you're feeling them, or you're not feeling them for that matter. Maybe you're still kind of deciding, where you stand in that conversation. When do you think is the right time to have that conversation? Should people even have the conversation? Is what I'm trying to find out from y'all. Hey guys, welcome to the conversation, guys. I see a lot of you are joining in. Thank you for joining in. But I need your feedback, y'all. I need your feedback. I want to know what you guys think. You know, I'm gonna pause for a little bit, a few minutes here, and wait to hear what you have to say. What are your thoughts on this? When is the right time to have a conversation about this? Should you talk about it if you were to meet someone that you have romantic interest with? Should you talk about it? You know, I would like to hear your feedback on that. Should people talk about this, or should they not talk about it? You all are live, man. Come on, give me some comments here. Give me your feedback. I want to know your feedback. What is your take on this? Right? What is your take on this? Remember, the lines are open. You can also call if you don't want to write your thoughts. If you just want to call directly and let me know what you think. You know, the phone is open. The lines are open. Hopefully, I hope so. Let me see if the line is open. Yes, it is. You know, so if you would prefer to call rather than talk about this, I'm definitely here to listen. Or if you would like to share your comments, I want your comments, man. When is the right time to talk about sex? Should people talk about it or not? Should two people who are on a date, who are feeling each other, should they talk about it? How early is too early, or how late is too late to talk about it? Do you think there's a right time to talk about it? That's what we are discussing tonight. We are discussing, sir. I'm not meant to lecture you on that. I want your feedback on it. You know, so I'm waiting for someone to break the ice and give me a response, give me a starting point so that I can go from that. I definitely have my position. I definitely have my opinion on a couple of viewpoints as far as this is concerned, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think that there is a right time to have that conversation? Should people have a conversation even? So if you're feeling each other, should you even have the conversation? Some people say, well, if you're already feeling each other, then you don't need to have the conversation. You just flow, like you just go with the flow. Other people say no, they don't think so. You can't just assume that they are feeling you like that. I mean, they could be feeling one part of you, but they're not feeling the entire thing. So, you know, they're hesitant about it. When do you think is the right time to engage the person that you're with about this topic? Should people be talking about it, or is it a conversation worth having to begin with? So you meet this chick, or this chick meets this guy, you guys are feeling each other. Guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Girls, ladies, I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, come on now, you all are here, you all are watching, but how come you are not saying anything? How come everybody is just quiet? You cannot all be mute. I just need your feedback on the topic. I mean, so that we can make this more lively and more engaging. You know, so if you all are not sharing, then, you know, let me continue with what my thoughts is. So some people would think that some people would assume that having a conversation messes the flow. So you're feeling them, you had a good date, you guys are already enjoying each other. I mean, they slide closer, they move an inch closer, and you adjust, you move yourself even closer, and then the next thing it moves into, you know, body parts that's communicating with each other, you know, and the next thing you steal a kiss, there's still another kiss from you. And, you know, one thing could lead to another. My question, though, is if that's happening on the first date and the other person wasn't comfortable, should they proceed if they're not comfortable with that move, do you think it's time to say, hold up, let's have a conversation about this? Or should they just assume that if they press on a little bit further, they can get more access? That's what I'm really curious about. I want to hear somebody say something. You know, I would like to hear your feedback on this. You know, guys, you know, I'm not sure what's going on. I can see the comments, I can read your comments, I can read your feedback, I can hear if you were to call and stuff, but I'm not reading any comments. I'm not sure if you're actually shy about this topic, which is actually unusual if you're shy about it, because I don't believe that this is a topic that we all should be shy about. But my question is a simple and direct question. If you were to meet somebody, is there a proper time to have the conversation? Should people talk about it or should people not talk about it, right? It's just a basic question. I mean, can somebody say a yay or a nay? That's all. You know, thank you. Finally, I get the icebreaker. Finally, thank you so much. Afawari says all the parties have to be on board. So all the parties have to be on board. So my question though is, how early? Say if all the parties are on board from the, okay, you're talking about in the case where one person, you steal the kiss and the kiss is fine, but then you're trying to go further and the other person is not comfortable with it, right? That's what you're saying, all parties should be on board. But the question is, so do you think at that point where one person got uncomfortable, do you think that's the point where they should have that conversation? They should say, oh, okay, hold up, I was feeling you, but I'm not exactly ready. You know, should that conversation happen at that point? Or does it happen even before you get to the point where you're touchy-feely? Or do you wait until, you know, your relationship has matured before you start saying, okay, let's talk about sex? You know, let's talk about sex, baby. You know, or, I mean, how do you even introduce that? When is the proper time? That's what I'm really curious to know. You know, guys, if you're just joining and you're wondering what the conversation is about, is when is the right time to talk about sex? And we covered the parental side of it. So the parental side of it is done with, and now we're talking about in your romantic relationship. So here you are, be it a male, you meet someone that you kind of, you're feeling, you know, you met them, you feel that there's a positive vibe there, there's energy. Or this chick meets this guy and she's thinking like, okay, you know what, I think this brother's cool, and you proceed, you know, you decide, okay, let's check each other out. You go out on this good date, you know, or vice versa, they come over or you go over, and the energy, things are kind of flowing, right? And all of a sudden, you know, you get a little bit close, you get maybe a little too close. But now one person gets comfortable or the other person doesn't get comfortable. Or at what point do you decide that, you know what, we are feeling each other, but let's have this dialogue now before we even establish that we want something, before we even go, you know, or after the first date, you decide, you know what, the date was great and everything, but is that a conversation to have? Or at what point in that whole encounter do you think sex should be a conversation, should be a topic? Now, some people argue that it shouldn't even be a topic of conversation. Some others argue that it should be a topic of conversation. Now, there are two things here. I think personally, if you have a religious concern or you have a medical concern, I think that it should be talked. It should be brought to the table up front. I mean, let's say you're feeling the guy and all of us, or the chick, you're feeling the chick and she's like, hold up, boo, you can't come too close because, you know, I have some STDs. Or they tell you, oh, you know, I just got recently diagnosed with some herpes, or you just got recently diagnosed with this. You know, would you have appreciated that conversation earlier, or would you have waited to, you know, maybe go after you know, you're intimate with a person and then you wake up, then they're telling you this? At what point is it appropriate for this conversation to happen? Guys, this is meant to be a discussion. I would like your feedback. Your interaction, your comments, for me to continue the discussion. If you're not really participating, it doesn't help the discussion. It doesn't help to expand the dialogue. It simply means that you'll be hearing what I have to say. I want to engage us in the discussion. Really, that's what dDTalks is about. It's about, you know, I give you my feedback, I engage the discussion, and then we just talk about it. We we discuss it, and then we summarize what the viewpoints was. You know, so if you're on the chat and you have an opinion, you have something that you would like to share, I would like to hear your feedback. I don't care how controversial it is. That's what we're here for. We talk about hot topics, real issues and stuff. So unless you don't really have an opinion, then that's great. But I would like to hear, what is your personal take on it? Should people have that conversation, or should they not have the conversation, is what we're talking about, right? So my theory is, if it's a religious concern, if let's say your religious beliefs prevents you from let's say having intimacy with a partner, I think you should present that up front to the individual that you're with, be it male or female. You should let them know that, sex is going to be an issue here where you are. I mean, that is, if it comes up, then you may have to tell them what your religious stance are, so that they understand if they want to proceed with this or if they're comfortable with it. Now, if there's a medical issue, medical issues should obviously be put on the table. The question though is, let's say you had 1 or 2 good dates, and maybe by the 3rd date you're thinking to yourself, this is not really going, you're not really feeling each other the way you thought it was. Then would you have felt uncomfortable if you talked about the sex, if you had even brought it up? So I'm thinking, some people are thinking that if you have a medical issue, you don't really need your business out there. But if you're going to be in the business of intimacy with somebody, you owe it to them at least to tell them what your truth is as far as any medical issues. And the medical issues we're talking here is, we're not talking about, let's say, your some critical health. We're not talking about, let's say, diabetes or that kind of stuff. We're just talking about sexually transmittable diseases. Anything that could affect the other individual because they were intimate with you is something that you should bring to the forefront. So hey guys, I mean, if you're listening and if you're hearing me, I would really like your feedback. I don't understand why nobody is actually engaging in the discussion. But if you're not engaging, it's not going to be a lengthy conversation. I'm just going to give you my feedback, and then it'll be the conclusion of the chat, because the whole idea of this chat today was so that it should be engaging. But if you're all not in a mood to have this dialogue, that's also cool. That's also cool. I just give you my feedback. So I'm just gonna go straight into what I think the proper time to have the conversation as far as I'm concerned. So if let's say you're with a friend, and this is a friend that you've had, maybe it's just a comfortable friend, you guys have never talked romance, and all of a sudden your friend, let's say maybe you had 1 too many drinks, and all of a sudden you get maybe you steal a kiss from each other. At that point, do you re-evaluate your friendship? Do you think you should say, hey friend, I think we should let's discuss this? Do you think that it's a point where you would want to discuss that? I think that if 2 friends actually cross that line, I think they have to say, hey, let's pause for a minute here and reevaluate. And if let's say it was out of alcohol, or you got uncomfortable, or whatever the incident happened, you were just in the heat of the moment and you crossed that line, I would say it's time for you guys to stop and say, if you guys are feeling each other, you still would want to talk about it though. You still would want to talk about it and determine if you actually want to proceed. At that point, you may want to say, okay, you know what, I think I'm also feeling the same way, or I'm not, or I mean, you should really discuss it so that it kills the awkwardness that exists between the 2 of you. Because if you were just regular friends that had never discussed romantic interest with one another, and you were to cross that line, that would become really truly awkward. It kills any friendship. Most friendships will die because of that, because at that point you don't know what to do about the friendship anymore. You don't know if you're supposed to call each other now in a romantic way. You don't know what the expectations are of one another. So at that point, I think if 2 friends were to cross that line, I think they need to stop and be true friends by having that dialogue and engaging themselves and figuring out where they go from there. Now, but if they're not feeling each other the same, it goes the same. But if these are 2 people who already established up front that, you know what, I have an interest in this person, I like them, I'm feeling them and stuff, then it's okay for them to definitely say, if the other person is moving too fast, I think you should establish that the relationship is moving too fast. And if they are not, then hey, I'm not sure what's going on today, but it's really bizarre that we're not getting comments. But I really don't understand what's going on. Why are people not engaging? Maybe I should just get a feedback from you guys. Why are you guys not as engaging as you ought to be? Is there something that you want to change out? Maybe you'd like to have a survey, because I thought this was going to be a conversation that should be more engaging. But again, like I said, if you guys are not being as you're not participating as you ought to be, then I'm just going to give you my feedback, and I will conclude in just another few minutes. I'm just going to wrap up shortly, because I needed the diversity of the conversation to progress. Okay, so it's just really bizarre. So or you know, just give me your feedback or as to why you think the dialogue is what it is. Anyway, but so then oh, there are comments. Okay, that's very bizarre, because I wasn't really seeing any comments. I only saw one comment so far, so I'm not sure what is going on. What is going on there? Let me see. Figure out. Let me try from another device and see if I can see the comments. So guys, keep the comments coming. I will be reading them shortly. I'm just going to try from another device to see what's actually going on, because I hear their comments, but I can't see any comments. So I'm just like really curious as to why I'm not able to see the comments, you know. So let me figure out what's going on here. So I'm watching from another device right now. I'm watching from another device. So let me. I'm really curious as to why. Oh, okay. So. Okay, so I see them, or ED. It's not. It needs to be talked about. No assumptions. State your intentions. There are no comments. Maybe you can see them. They're okay. Don't cut it short. Interesting subject. Okay, so I mean, thanks about and Adija and Noel Ngai. So listen, I wasn't seeing your comments, so so I figured, you know, the interest wasn't there, and I think I'm seeing them now from this device. And if people want to dial and you know, chime in what they think, then that's great. But for it was very weird that I couldn't read your comments, which I found very bizarre, that the comments were not coming through. So let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are, because you know, that's what helps me to engage, to address them. I sort of gave you my viewpoint, and I would like to know what yours are, you know, on this conversation. The question though is it too early? When is it too early? When is the right time to have the conversation about sex with someone that you're romantically interested in? Because if you're already involved, then you already probably have an established pattern. You've already figured out when is the right time to talk about it. But if you're not romantically, if you're still trying to get to know each other, then that's when that conversation becomes relevant. And my question is, when do you think is the right time, is what I'm curious to know. Like, I just wanted to poll your opinion on when you think the right time is to have that conversation. Okay, so let me know your thoughts. I'm gonna try to read your comments, so let me know as well what's going on with your feedback. You know, I would like to know, when is the right time, guys? What is the right time? Come on now, give me your feedback. If you're a guy, let me know what you think is the right time. Should the chick even bring it up? If you're already feeling each other, do you think it's worth having that conversation? But if you're not really feeling each other, do you think it's even is necessary? You might as well squash it, right? So if you're feeling it, if you're digging the person, some chicks will say, if you're already feeling the dude, if you're already feeling the guy, then there's no point in having the conversation, right? Then the conversation is mute, because you want them to inch in even further, because you're allowing yourself. But now, if let's say you are of a belief or a mentality that this is an area where you shouldn't be, you don't want to get involved, then, you know, you should have the conversation. You should halt them and tell them, you know what, this is what your religious beliefs are, and that you want to respect them, or you want to honor yourself, whatever it is that you want to give. But if you're going to get involved, most people would say you can't have the cake. You can't have the product without tasting it, right? So people would want to taste of the pudding, but others would say, you know what, I'm willing to wait. So if you're the party who's willing to wait, then, you know, once you have the conversation, you're good, you're hands off. But if you're the kind of person who knows it is part of the whole shebang, you believe that that's what you would want to, it's eventually going to lead to that, then when is the right time that you want to have the conversation? And if you do have the conversations, what are you really talking about? Are you talking about what is your health status? Are you talking about, are you tested for HIV? Are you talking about those things? I mean, because if you're going to talk about it, you might as well bring up that conversation, right? You might as well say, but you know how awkward it is to ask somebody if they were tested, but would you rather regret it or not? Or do you, or when you talk about it, are you going to talk about how frequently you want it, or how, you know, how often you want it, or how does that conversation go down for most people is what I'm curious about. How does that conversation go down for the average person? Do you say, you know what, I'm not ready for it, or I'm ready for it, but this is what I want, or this is my expectation in the relationship, you know? So let me know what you guys think. Very, very bizarre. Hey guys, let me know your comments, right? I don't understand why, you know, the comments, is it that they're delayed in coming through, you know? Guys, share your thoughts, okay? Let me get your feedback. All right, let me get your feedback. Are you guys live? Say something if you can hear me. Give me some hearts or give me some thumbs up so I know that you're still engaging in the conversation. You know, otherwise, again, like I said, you know, if you guys are not, if I can't read the comments, if you're not sharing the comments, then, you know, what's there to talk about? You know, so the thing is, if you're going to have the conversation, what are you really talking about? Are you talking about, you know, just how uncomfortable you are, or are you talking about what your comfort level is? And I think that if sex even happened, let's say you stumbled on it, it happened the first day, it wasn't something that you were ready to discuss, or maybe after 2 or 3 dates you were enjoying each other, you were feeling each other, and then you decided to have it. I still think that it is a conversation worth having. You still need to talk about it. So whether you're talking about it before or you're talking about it after, you still need to establish what's in it that you're going to, how is this going to work, or did you, and can people talk about it honestly with this person that you're with? Can you honestly tell them that, I know it was the first time but I didn't enjoy it, or it was a second time I'm not really feeling it. Maybe the first time is over excitement, you didn't, you know, you guys were too excited and you really didn't maximize it, or you had a great experience and you're like, okay, can you guys honestly talk to each other about it? Because whether you choose to talk about it or not, you're still going to have to confront, you're still going to have to deal with that issue. Because if you don't have those honest conversations, guess what's going to happen? It's going to affect you eventually. Because let's say there's something they're doing that you don't like and you're not being honest about it, it's gonna come after you. So oh, okay, so they say they're commenting. How is it that I'm not seeing the comment? This is crazy. Lord, like, I really don't like. Someone is indicating that there are actually comments here, but for some bizarre reason, I cannot see the comments. And I'm on 2 separate devices, and I still cannot see your comments. That's like so uncool, so uncool. Let me try again one more time to see what's going on here. Oh, wow. Okay. Are you kidding me now? Okay, so now I just refreshed and I'm able to see some of the comments. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I just refreshed. I just logged out of the session and then came back and I was able to see the comments. So thank you for letting me know, because I was wondering, I was like, what is going on? So thank you guys for letting me know that the comments were coming through, because I was getting worried, like, what's going on. So I just refreshed my screen and somehow I can actually see the comments now. So thank you. My God. Okay. So now that I can read the comments, let me go through the comments and then I'll be able to respond. Jeez, you guys, I thought you guys left me in the dry. You know, thank you for saving the day. All right, so I think the earlier part of the comments was really more about, was still in the kids section, because we broke the topic into 2 halves. And the first half was really about parental, how the parents should handle. Okay, so somebody says, okay, yeah, so okay, so let me I'm getting some good feedback right now. I can actually see your comments. Thank you so much. And then so talk about it as soon as somewhere. So Lydia, I see your comment. You say talk about it as soon as possible. So I want to assume that when you say talk about it as soon as possible, that's if you have, let's say, the two main issues. I think two main issues that you cannot avoid talking about would be if you have a medical condition, an STD, right, a sexually transmittable disease, then that needs to be on the table. Like, especially if maybe after the first date, you don't really need to put your business out there like that. I mean, maybe let's say after the first date, you're like, okay, you know, the first date is really to establish if you guys see a connection. If after all the phone conversations that you've had, you see a connection, and now you're saying to yourselves, you go back home, you evaluate, you rate the dates, you rate the person, and you determine that, okay, you know what, I think I want to explore a relationship with this person, and you guys are in agreement. At that point, then the next time you meet, if you already know that you're meeting now be out of interest, now it's a follow-up, I think you have to bring those concerns to the table. You would have to say, I have something that's difficult to talk about, but I need to talk about, or at least I need to let you know. So yes, in that regard, I think that it is unfair to the other party, to the party that you're with, if you do not disclose to them that you have any of those conditions, because that's technically a crime. Because if you have a disease that's sexually transmittable and you do not let the other person know, and especially if they do it with unprotected sex, then you've committed a crime, because you knowingly are aware that you have a condition that can go over to another person, and you do not disclose that to them. So you're committing a crime. So you are better off having that conversation, letting the person decide for themselves how they want to proceed with you. They could say, you know what, I appreciate the fact that you're honest, and because of your honesty, let's figure out how we can work this out. The other person might say, you know what, thank you for being honest with me, but you understand that this is an uncomfortable thing for me. I don't want to move further. But at least at that point, you know what you're dealing with, right? And in the other respect, if you are actually based on your religious beliefs, you have a concern, you have a constraint factor, you are actually abstaining because of your religious beliefs, or your religion forbids you from having premarital sex, then you need to just tell the person up front. First of all, if you have religious beliefs, chances are you are not even going to go further into a date with a person, because by that time you would have already established, chances are you're going to be screening people. You would want them to be you know, at the same spiritual level with you, so you would be most likely looking for somebody who is going to the same church like you are. So and by the time you're having those conversations with them, you would already know that you are not aligned, right? So by the time you're going on a date, you know this is not the right person. So, or if it were to happen that you didn't have these conversations and you do go on a conversation, you want to put it out there up front so they know, I want to proceed with this chick, or I don't want to proceed with this dude, right? So I think that is very important. Lydia, that was a very good point. I must live under a rock, but help me understand why you need to talk about it. Okay, so here is now a variance, right? So you're saying, why do you need to talk about it? Well, you need to talk about it if let's say you got uncomfortable. That's a bad viewpoint, right? Let's say yeah, that was Sabat. Sabat says, you know, why do you really need to talk about it? That's a good point, but the thing is, if you're feeling each other, the guy and the dude and the chick, they're feeling each other, then there's no point of having a conversation, right? Because what's there to talk about? You just move to the next stage. You just move to the next element. Because you're going to be feeling each other, you're going to enable each other, right? I mean, they touch you, you're going to lean over, you're going to screw over, you're going to kiss back, right? There will be no resistance. But when there's a resistance, which means I'm comfortable with step one, which is maybe a kiss, but I'm not comfortable with step two. Maybe because I don't know enough yet, or I just feel like, you know, we need to wait it out. Then, you know, then there's a reason why you may have to talk about it. If there is resistance, you would have to talk about it. If there's no resistance on both sides, forge ahead, right? You have the okay, you have the permission to get ahead. Then Adisha says there really isn't any timeline. You go with your feelings, address it as necessary. I agree. You go with your feelings, right? If you're feeling each other, you think that this is working, you go for it. Ebenye says, I think it differs. Everything being equal, culturally, that conversation don't take place. But I think it should do. Culturally, well, and that's why maybe the cultural element, I mean, people from different cultures have different opinions, right? On the American side, most people, I think what do you really think? Do Americans have the conversation? I think here people have the conversation. They actually, you feel. But I think in general, when two people kind of like each other, they kind of skip that element. It's like an implied. You go further, and then you wake up and like, okay, I think we need to talk. Like, what's next after this? Because if you talk about it, then you really preempt, or you resolve a lot of differences, right? You resolve a lot of differences that are going on. So Ebenye, you have a good point there as far as cultural differences, because if I'm correct, in Africa a lot of people just they're like first of all, African women have they resist a lot, right? So it's sort of like a no is actually sort of a yes, like the guy will be trying to punch you, so they really cannot tell when the no is really no. So date rapes easily occur because African women have a tendency of like, no, I don't really want it, but then they're actually okay. They're still sort of letting the body sort of flow. I don't really want it, but they're coming closer. They're inching closer, right? And then eventually you fight and fight and fight, and then eventually you cave in. So in that context, you can't really tell now if was it a solid no or was it like a no yes. Whatever that really means, right? But that's African women for you. They have to fight it. They have to fight it, and they say. So if you have that kind of cultural difference, the guy may not be able to tell the difference. He may not be able to tell is she like firmly saying no, I don't want it, or is she like kind of giving me? Is it like that kind of no that's saying like push, like it's no, but I still want you to not resist, like to not give up, sort of a thing. So in that kind of case where you have those kind of cultural differences, that could be a problem, right? So if you have a chick who is African and you're probably with an American and that's happening, the guy may stop concretely, because to him he's like, it was a no, meaning she's not interested, so they have to stop because it is interpreted as it's a rape. But the other way around, it's not the case. These people will be like, I mean, she wanted it, she gave in later. So how you define date rapes is completely different with the cultural dynamics, right? So that was a very good element that you introduced. And then what was it again? Who said? Sebastian, my opinion is, if you're the kind that you want to wait until marriage, you need to talk about it ASAP. If you do not need to talk about it, otherwise you don't need to talk about it, it will happen naturally. So the argument here is that if it's going to happen naturally, then you just let it happen naturally, right? But if you know that you have, so anytime that you feel like there's a resistance, or any party that feels in that situation like they have concerns and there's a point of resistance, then you will need to dialogue. But if two parties, which means is implied without conversations, it could be implied, but you still are not ready. And if you're not ready, as in you're showing the individual that you're interested, but at that point, anytime that you do feel like there's a disconnect somewhere emotionally or mentally, it needs to be brought to the forefront. It needs to be brought to the forefront, right? So I'm kind of glad that I finally got to read this comment. So basically what you all are saying is, some people are arguing that there's no right time. But my thing is, if you were to have the conversation though, should that happen on the first date? Should it happen on the second date? Should it happen on the third date? Now here's a scenario where, let's say a guy spent a whole lot of money on his first date. Maybe he spent a whole lot of money, he took you out, he went all full length. He went all out for you on the first date. And he's expecting it to finish off the way it started, like because of all these expenses. And you were feeling it, but you were like, okay, I know you spent all this money, but I still don't want to. Is it okay to have that conversation at that point, or do you feel like because they spend that much money, you owe it to them to finish it off, to finish the night off in the bedroom? Do you think the person is entitled to that because of how the date went, or because of how much was spent? So do you think that how much is invested in your first or second date can affect what happens thereafter? Do you think that it precipitates how soon sex happens in that relationship or not? Is the question is the follow-up question that I have for you guys. Do you think that if the guy most likely, because most dates, first or second dates are typically taken care of by the guy. So my question to you is, if the guy spent a whole lot of money, went all out on his first and second date, perhaps, went to all extreme, do you think that it precipitates, it enables sex to happen, to move faster in their relationship, or it delays it? Is there a window for delayance because you're thinking they've spent all this money on you, they've shown you all these excesses? Do you think that it would move the discussion of sex, or it would allow sex to happen sooner or later? Do you think that at that point, even having that discussion will be okay? Do you think that the more you spend, the quicker you would have access, or the more it's delayed? Do you think that it has any impact as to how soon it's going to happen or not? Any comments on that? Any thoughts? I would like to hear your thoughts. I would like to hear your feedback on that. Do you think that the more money that is spent on a date affects how quickly sex is given up in the relationship? Let me hear what your thoughts are, because I think most people, common assumption is that if the guy were to go all out, spend all expenses, I think he's thinking, it's sort of like they're buying the sex up front, right? They're buying it like I'm going to put out all this money, I'm going to expend, I'm going to make it so fantastic that there's no way for her to resist. And the question would be, do you think they're going to resist it? I think the chances are the level of resistance is lower, because you are thinking of all the expenses. I mean, you feel spoiled, you feel loved and everything, so chances of giving it up in a short amount of time is higher, versus the person who doesn't really spend as much, that is not really fully vested, right? When they're not fully vested, you also feel like, what's the point? Because the biggest prize for the woman is that cookie, right? So the longer you can keep the cookie, the better you feel like, your value is stretched. So if you give up the cookie up front, then it's kind of like the hunter went to the chase, went to hunt, and came back with the good, like on day one. So what's there to hunt again? Like, you already eliminated the whole mystery element. But my thing is, if the guy invests more up front, do you think it enables him to have access to the cookie sooner? Do you think that because money is spent up front, it facilitates access to the cookie or not, right? And the cookie, of course, is sex. So if you're acting lame, or you're not aware of what I'm talking about. So really, this was a good discussion. I'm glad you guys tuned in, and I'm glad you gave me your opinion as far as sex is concerned. So there are basically two opinions on this, that for some people, majority believe that you don't really need to discuss nothing, which I found very interesting. I thought personally, I think that there are conversations that should be had. Why should it be had? Because you should be talking about, you should explore, you should have those conversations to figure out what their health status is before you go further, right? Because if you're not having the conversation, it means you're ignoring all of those things. It means you have chosen to just say, you know what, I don't even care about what your, because how can you then have it if you didn't address those health elements? And by the health elements, we're talking STDs. But then again, if you have it and it's protected sex, then yeah, you could successfully skip the conversation because you had protected sex, which covers you in the interim. But at some point, but the downside with that is, once you've already had that, to now come back and ask the other person to say, what is your medical status as far as this is concerned, can be extremely awkward, because it's like, that conversation should have happened before you got here, and now you're trying to do it the reverse way. So that's why I think that you should still find a way, in spite of the emotions. Don't let the emotions consume you too much. Still find a way to have the conversation, otherwise it's really going to be tricky, because anybody can say anything as far as their medical record is concerned, but you never really know what the facts are. Nowadays, there are still newly diagnosed people, newly diagnosed patients with some of these STDs. And if they're newly diagnosed people, it means people are still going around and having unprotected sex. And if people are having unprotected sex, then that's how come these diseases are being transmitted, because it's not transmitted by drinking water, right? It's not transmitted by eating food. It's transmitted by intimacy. So if you have newly diagnosed people with these diseases, it means we are going around with unprotected sex, having unprotected sex. So the sooner people have those discussions, the better it is for your bedroom. So I think someone is I feel as though the comments are delayed somehow. I don't know, there's a latency issue that's going on. But whatever be the case, I mean, I truly appreciate all your feedback, all your comments. I'm just going to go on for another couple of minutes to wrap up the discussion. And thank you so much for listening and just being patient. It was actually an engaging discussion. I'm thankful that you gave me all your opinions. But I still did not get my response. I wanted some couple of people to give me their take on this. My take was, do you think that if you invest more money up front, it affects access to the cookie? Do you think that it facilitates your access to the cookie? Do you think if you invested more money in your dates with a woman, chances are you're going to have access to her cookie sooner than later, versus the other way around? Like if you were to delay, you're not showing a lot of interest, you're not putting enough money up front. Do you think that would extend how your access? Was my sign off question for you, or the closing remarks, because I have commented. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure what really happened today with the comments. I feel like there's so many comments that were going on that I sort of missed for whatever reason. I logged onto 2 separate devices, but the comments for my end seemed slightly delayed. Okay. So let me figure out what's going on here. Okay, so I see that there were a couple of the first. Okay, who is this with the Asian name? So that I can't really read. You have hieroglyphics for your name. Say first date should be at the McDonald's. Really? Why would you, or Starbucks? I mean, it depends on what kind of date it is. It depends on if let's say you met, and if you're meeting someone online. I think that your first date should be like in open space, in those kind of environments. You should meet like a Starbucks, a pizzeria, a food court. It shouldn't be anything super elaborate, because you've met online and you're just really trying to establish a face-to-face rapport. That's not even a date. That's just like, let's get to see who this individual is. I think that's what should happen if you were to meet someone online and now you want to meet them physically for the first time to figure out who they are. But now if you've met somebody already, let's say you met someone for the first time, you've already met them, maybe you met at a grocery store, you met at an event, at a party, so you've already established, you have a physical, you know how the person looks physically, and you've been communicating with this individual already, let's say via phone, texting, and all of that, then I think that when you choose to now go on a date, it should be a proper date. I mean, what is a proper date? I mean, a proper date is really very, honestly, but it should go beyond a McDonald's or a Starbucks, right? I mean, you should be planning to spend a better quality. It could be a dinner date, it could be a lunch date, but it should be something a little bit more elaborate to indicate that you're trying to spend a little bit more time with this particular individual. Either you're watching movies or what. Movies technically are not ideal dates. Why? Because in the movie you really cannot talk, but someone who's trying to have access to the cookie will obviously love the movie, because eventually in the movie, especially if it's like a scary movie or one of those romantic movies, chances are you're gonna cross over and touch and feel and all of that. So it creates that atmosphere for that. But if you're just trying to get to know somebody on a mental level, then movies are not the right thing. You can start off with dinner and then end with the movie, right? Or you can go hiking, you can do hiking. To me, quite frankly, is not a date. I mean, quite frankly, it's an appetizer to a date. Because why do I want to go like climb mountains, climb hills, and then come back? Like, how is that a date? Okay, or you put them. People have different opinions. To me, that's like saying, okay, let's go sweat it out, break some sweat, then come back, shower, and then have the real date. Now, if you're taking me for a picnic, that's a different discussion, right? That's a different whole ball game. That's like, I would see that as a date. But different people, different rhythms, different flavors. Everybody has their own different engagement. So let me go back. I think the comments were a little bit. What was his choice? To spend all that money, you don't have to finish the night with him in bed. Okay, so Lydia was responding to my comment as far as if you were to spend more money on the person upfront, does that give you access to the cookie? So Lydia was saying, if you spend the money, don't you expect to finish off in the bedroom? I mean, chances are most people spend that money because they anticipate that it would lead to that, right? It will finish off. It will be a good movie finish, right? It will have a good finale. But if you spend all that money and it doesn't end there, then, you know, I think that at some point the conversation will have to come up. But if it's a true gentleman, he wouldn't be expecting that it should end there. A gentleman is just trying to give you a good time, you know, so they would understand that it's not supposed to happen on that first date. Granted, if you give it to them, they're going to take it. But a proper gentleman would know that, okay, it's a good date and they're expecting it by the second or third date. Perhaps it should. But I think you should establish that you're on a 2 months, you know, or 3 months courtship or whatever, you know, like dating, where you just get to just understand each other without that sexual intimacy. If you're going to be with the person for a long time, then what's the rush of doing it on the first or second or third date? You know, just get to spend quality time, get to understand each other, appreciate different ways of enjoying yourselves without that, so that when that element is introduced, it's just an addition, right? So that would be my theory on that. Yep, you're right. You should not allow a man to spend a lot of money in the beginning. I think it clouds your judgment. So you agree that he shouldn't. Well, the thing is, you don't get to decide whether he wants to spend a lot of money or not. If he chooses that, you know, he esteems you very highly, and perhaps that's his style, he may want to spend. He may want to showcase that to you. He may want to show you that he appreciates you at that level by, you know, by taking you to, you know, fancy places. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just, the thing is, it's not a one-sided game, you know, because if you're going to like a fancy date, it's not like they're just spending it on you. Both of you are bringing good company, and the person is also giving you good company, giving you a good time, and you're bringing your good attitude and good company. Because you could spend all that money with a bad date, and then you just feel like really stupid. But if you spend that money on somebody who was deserving, that actually you really enjoyed their time, it wouldn't feel like you wasted your money. It would feel like, you know, you actually intended to spend it, and the quality of time that you spend with them would be worth it. So I'm not averse to people spending money. Matter of fact, hey, I think that, you know, we both deserve a good time. Why not? So it depends on what your style is and what you like. You know, I personally prefer, you know, better quality dates. You know, I'm not into taking it back. Now, once we've already known each other, we you know, we are in a relationship, heck yeah, we can do McDonald's on a Saturday. We can do any of that. But like, don't be trying to take me on a first date to McDonald's. That's not. It shouldn't. That's not respectful. Personally, that's my opinion. I'm not trying to impose my opinion on nobody. So Pam, what does Pam say? Pam says, how much they spend on a date shouldn't determine how soon you take it that far. Women should have standards and stick to them. Pam, that's a good point. So it shouldn't affect, because it's just them evaluating you and saying, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to spend that day. So it should have no impact. You should have your standards. So if that's what they decide to do, some people ask you where you would like to go, right? And then others present to you options. So it just depends. I mean, if they say this is where they want to take you, that's how they choose to entertain you. So it doesn't mean you change your standards just because they upped the game, right? You should still actually maintain your. Matter of fact, the fact that they're spending more means they understand that you have values to begin with. They understand that you have standards, and so they expect you to have standards anyway. So if you were to bend your standards just because, you know, they gave in, or because they spend those excesses on you, then you have traded yourself too cheap. So do not cave in just because of that. All right. So I mean, guys, thank you so much for a wonderful discussion. I do apologize that I wasn't seeing your comments earlier, but I appreciate your time. I always love it when we have these brilliant discussions and stuff. So thank you for your time. I'm not going to hold you guys up. It's just about the hour. We are at the 1 hour mark. I appreciate you guys so very much. We do this basically 3 times a week On Sundays is Uncensored Sundays. You know, send me any topics that you think you want an honest, blunt opinion on, and I'll try to give it to you the way that it comes to me. And then on Tuesdays is just Relationship Tuesdays. And if there's somebody who would like to call in, chime in, you know, dive, Skype in during these calls, heck, you know, I'm ready to take your calls and do that. Be more engaging, you know, so don't be shy with your thoughts, right? Let's talk about these things. The reason we bring it to the forefront is so that it should help us. It should help us in our day-to-day lives, okay? So the idea here is not to bust anybody's bubbles. It's not to embarrass anybody. It's just to bring the discussion so that we take away some learning points from that, okay? And then on Thursdays, I'm at the studio live, where I usually have a live guest in studio on Thursdays. But this week I will not be in studio. I will be off-site, but I will probably log in. I will probably be online just very briefly, and you will figure out where I am. I will be off location, okay? So, but in the meantime, I want to appreciate you guys so much for being patient with me, for constantly watching. But before you go, make sure you like my page. I want you guys to like my page, share the cast. That's how we grow. That's how we grow the business. If you have a business that you want to advertise, you would like to reach a broader audience, because you know the audience is broad, you know, far and wide. You have audiences international, people timing from different parts of the world. So if you want to reach a broader audience and you want to advertise, or you want to be a sponsor of the show, you want to help the show move to another level, by all means reach out to me so that I can take the business. I can keep growing this. So you know, just representing us, and you know, just doing good things for the communities, right? The diaspora, you know, and the American milieu. So it's really just all that I'm out here for. Bring you engaging conversations. We try to promote and showcase others who are doing really good stuff out there, but more importantly, bring discussions that would help benefit, empower, and grow us as a people. All right, so thank you so much, and I hope that you have a phenomenal rest of the week. I will see you back on Thursday, like I said, but on Thursday it'll be a brief chat. All right, so thank you guys so much. I hope that you learned something from this conversation. If you didn't learn, I learned something, but I hope that you take home something with you. All right, so that's it for me. I'm gonna log off, and I hope and pray that no matter what, if nobody has told you that they love you, you always know who loves you, right? Hey, I don't blink about that, right? I don't mess with that stuff, man. If no one has told you that they love you, you know who loves you, right? It's your girl, Diana. I love you always. I love you, and I love you with the love of God, okay? Love y'all. That's right. Take you out for a dinner and do things the right way.